How's it going, laser bursters? I'm Sixkilla and welcome back to Route Double. We're currently in Ina's memories because basically she wants us to trust her. So we're finding out who she really is and who she really works for. Looks like she works for the PRC as a sort of BC police, just like her father, who was the person who was put in charge of Communicator A, who, you know, caused the Great Rokume City arson. That's a good start, anyway. The thought that communicators have to be protected is too short-sighted and dangerous. In the same way that there are good and bad ordinary people, so too are there bad communicators. Even if they aren't unified, communicators can still be dangerous. I mustn't let my guard down. They're a different breed from us, with their own unique abilities. When she thought about it, the cause of her father's death was actually created by a communicator. Eventually it became a natural habit of Ina to close her heart toward communicators. But then one day, Curator assigned Ina with a new duty. Me? A teacher? Yes, well, to be more accurate, you'll be stationed at a BC specialty school as a commissioner to protect and observe the communicators. I know it's hard, but don't forget that at the core, we're part of the Ministry of Education, Culture, Sports, Science and Technology. Considering the education part, it shouldn't be odd to teach, should it? But I've never imagined taking on such an assignment. No, you actually need this sort of experience right now, since your heart's been hardened considerably these past 2 years, you see. Well, you'll understand as soon as you take up the assignment. Go interact with some pure-hearted children and soothe that heart of yours. And thus, on her 3rd year in the Bureau, Ina reached a turning point as a commissioner. She was assigned to Rokume Academy, the BC specialty school established in Ina's hometown. Starting today, I'm going to be playing teacher. I know it's for work, but it's such a pain. Ina shook her head in frustration as she headed for the school building. She closed her heart as always and masked her true character from those around her. I'm your new teacher, Ina Tsubakiyama. I'll make up for my lack of experience with my surplus of eagerness, so I look forward to working with you all. Yes, ma'am. The students obediently answered Ina's greeting. To live as a teacher, the first thing Ina kept in mind was to befriend the students. The students being wary of her would hinder her work as a commissioner, so to prevent that situation, she played the part of a friendly teacher who was enthusiastic about education, but still had some playfulness to her. It wasn't a job she exactly wanted to do, but now that she had to do it, she thought she might as well give it her best. If you have any questions, feel free to ask, okay? One student called out in response to that invitation. Miss Ina, do you have a boyfriend? Oddly enough, it was a girl who asked that staple question. If I'm not mistaken, that girl's Mashiro Toba, a rank B aptitude ability level 3 communicator. Huh. Since she has a rank B aptitude, I wouldn't be surprised if she demonstrated empathy at some point. Need to be wary of her. As she kept that thought in mind, Ina smiled and answered the question. No, I don't. Actually, I just moved to Rokume City, so I don't have very many friends or acquaintances yet. Ah, then you can be my friend. As Mashiro said that, the boy in the next seat accosted her. Come on, Mashiro, you're being rude to the professor here. That boy's Natsuhiko Tenkawa, the rank S aptitude, ability level 0 boy. An extremely peculiar student with a clear gap between aptitude and ability. I need to observe him extremely carefully. Oh my, it's okay. I've only just now become a teacher, so there's not that big of a gap in age between us. I'd actually appreciate it if you approach me as a friend. See, Natsuhiko? Looks like my hunch was right. You always get carried away like this. Now, settle down, children. Now then, class, how about we start the lesson already? Okay. At any rate, Ina's life as a teacher began thusly. Rokume Academy students were all obedient, and a lot of the children were honest and bright by nature. A likely cause for the students' positive attitude was because they were raised in a communicator-only environment from a young age. By treating mind reading and mind conveying as the normal matters of life, it seemed almost naturally easier to raise communicators with such straightforward personalities. But nevertheless, Ina felt stressed in that environment. An environment where almost everyone around her was a communicator. It pained her frayed heart. I need to acclimatise to this environment, and quick. Ina couldn't quite understand what Kurota's aim was. Sure, it might have been the perfect environment to test her aptitude as a commissioner, and to tempt her spirit and body and ability, but still. When Ina found herself confused and at a loss due to her lack of experience at her new job, it was none other than the students who came to her rescue. Miss Ina, are you going home now? One day, just as Ina was about to head home, Mashiro called out to her in the hallway. Beside her was Natsuhiko. Oh, are you two going home as well? Yes. Then how about we go together for just a little bit? Ina thought it might be a good opportunity to observe those two surveillance targets. As they walked, Ina spoke to the kids, all the while carefully choosing harmless and inoffensive words that fit the image of a new teacher. Say, I hope you two don't mind me asking, but Were there any problems with my lesson? Huh? What do you mean? I'm only just starting out, so I'm not too confident. If there are any parts that were hard to understand, it'd be a big help if you told me. There weren't any at all. It was really easy to understand. Yeah, besides, you're enthusiastic and engaged the class directly. You're somewhat different from the other teachers. Huh? Different from the other teachers how? Well, I guess it has to be how the other newly appointed teachers at this school would build up a defensive wall against us. I guess it's easy to make the misunderstandings that all communicators are espers that read minds and stuff. That's true, normally we're not all that conscious of how we're communicators, but it might seem a little uncanny to newcomers, so it's a bit of a shock to them perhaps. But you didn't shy away at all, Miss Ina, so it was a relief to us all. Well, it's only natural, I am a teacher after all. I'd be a failure of a teacher if I let my students intimidate me. Natsuhiko and Mashido smiled in relief to hear that. But in the back of Ina's mind she felt a little guilty, for she was only playing the role of an amicable teacher. Temporarily, while her true mission was something else entirely, to keep the Rokume Academy students under constant surveillance to see if any of them became enified. The school constantly monitored the students' aptitude and ability through genetic tests and ability level exams entirely for that purpose as well. Particularly Natsuhiko, one of only 6 rank S aptitude communicators currently in Japan. Both the ESP Bureau and Labo had recognized him as top priority observation target. If by any chance Natsuhiko were to awaken to his BC powers and demonstrate sense sympathy, he'd be restrained immediately. That was both part of Ina's job and the nation's regulations. But unaware of that disturbing truth, Natsuhiko and Mashido looked at Ina with affectionate eyes. Please be more confident in yourself, Professor. I think you're a great teacher. I'm not too good at parapsychology, but even I think your lesson was easy to understand. Natsuhiko, you never complimented a parapsychology teacher before, have you? Man, you reek. I can smell an ulterior motive all the way over here. Huh? Ulterior motive? Please be careful around him, okay, Miss Ina? This scoundrel's got a thing for older women, so he sucks up to any woman older than him. Idiot, what are you saying, Mashido? Oh my, now you put me on the spot. I'm happy, but we have to maintain a healthy student-teacher relationship. Don't play along with her, Professor. Ina smiled at those words. Her smile was still fake, but at least a little bit of it was genuine. Ever since that day, Ina's heart gradually softened. At first, she was only playing the part of an amicable teacher, but little by little, she genuinely grew into that role. During lessons, she received students' questions as cordially as possible. Ina had originally studied parapsychology quite earnestly in college, so she had vast stocks of BC knowledge in store, and if sharing that knowledge made the students happy, it pleased her too, and thus she gradually became accustomed to the academy. The students thronged around Ina again today. Miss Ina, can you help me with the career survey from the other day? I'm stumped. I just can't decide. Oh my, you don't have any dreams for the future? Nothing definite yet. I want to at least do something that puts my talents to good use for others, at least. Like a chef or a counsellor. Or how about Mr. Tenkawa's wife? Huh? What are you talking about, Miss Ina? You're so easy to figure out. Oh, to be young again. Natsuhiko turned toward the two after hearing his name in their conversation. Huh? Did you call for me, Professor? No, she didn't. She didn't. Go away, Natsuhiko. Why do you have to be like that? Ina smiled at their little exchange. If you ignore the fact that these kids are communicators, they're just normal children, huh? Even though I have to keep my guard up around them, they really are still kids that I need to protect. Before she knew it, Ina had regained her original pure state of mind. But it wasn't as if she could abandon her duty as a commissioner. If Natsuhiko showed even the faintest sign of inification, Ina probably wouldn't hesitate to restrain him. Their peace was built upon a foundation of dangerously thin ice. If even the smallest crack were to form in the ice, it could spell a repeat of the tragedy 16 years ago. And I need to hide that fact as I interact with them. So for the sake of these kids, at the very least, Ina would protect that temporary peace with all her might. She would protect what her father could not. If I had one wish, it would be for a world where the kids could live in peace forever. And thus, after regaining her love for communicators, Ina put forth her efforts into her commissioner work once again. She analysed data from all the students, not just in her class, but everyone from elementary to high school. She also scoured archival data to find any students in the past showing signs of inification. But as she did so, Ina happened to come across a certain fact. A female student of his school died 9 years ago. And she met with a fire that happened in Labo? The student's name was said to be Yuri Katono. For some reason, this knowledge stuck in Ina's mind. Labo is supposed to be protected by perfect disaster prevention and security systems. So why would a fire happen there? I'll go look into it a little. Ina began a personal investigation into the matter. She spent a weekend researching the fire that happened 9 years ago. As she fished for documents and gathered information here and there, various unusual points came to light. Mr. Tenkawa was there too at the time of Yuri Katono's death, and immediately afterwards Mr. Tenkawa's aptitude rose. Furthermore, Labo's performance improved soon afterwards. It became the top performing BC research facility in Japan, releasing innovation after innovation. Development of BC inhibitor AD, development of the BC particle energy measuring instrument the Procyon, development of anti-BC suits, improvement of BC insulators, enhancement of the WX particle amplifier output, verification of the informational field hypothesis and upgrading it to the informational field theory, among many other results. How was Labo able to produce so many different results? Ina couldn't find the connecting thread among all these facts, but she really didn't think it could have been a coincidence. There was another time when Labo's performance improved this much, presumably when Communicator A showed up. The year after Labo was established in 2016, when Communicator A was still alive and confined as a test subject within Labo. Around that time, the AD prototype was made and the WX particle amplifier's output was vastly strengthened. But with Communicator A's natural death in Labo in 2017, they had no results that stood out all the way through to 2020. But starting 2021, their productivity rose again, and is still rising to this day. It'd be great to write it all off as coincidence, but there was one other thing that bothered Ina. After A's death, 13 years passed without them confining a single test subject. That in itself might have been a joyous occasion, but it instead felt unnatural. Communicators who demonstrated sense sympathy were all confined to various labs, and each lab's administrator reports the confinements to the ESP Bureau. That was the secret law of the nation. But Orokume City, with its 350 communicators, had not reported a single communicator demonstrating sense sympathy. Was that not odd? Have there really been not been any appearances of ability level 6 communicators in Orokume City? Or has one really appeared and they're already confined in Labo, and Labo has merely neglected their obligation to report it to us at the ESP Bureau? There's only one reason to neglect the obligation to report. They must be doing something they really don't want us to know about. Ina's skin broke out into goosebumps the moment that thought crossed her mind. Human experimentation. That was the term that came to mind. No way, that can't be. But as Ina had travelled across the country as a commissioner, she had encountered a similar incident before. She had arrested researchers that had abducted and entrapped a communicator to perform illegal experimentation. The same exact incident is happening in a government-designated top-secret city? It's just baseless conjecture without proof on her part. But as soon as she had harboured that suspicion, Ina's eyes changed from that of a teacher to that of a commissioner. After that, she continued her investigation even further, and after 3 months of investigation, she brought her results to ESP Bureau headquarters. You're saying there's a possibility that Labo has been illegally abducting and confining communicators? Yes. Ina gave a clear answer to Kuroda's doubtful question. First, concerning Yuri Katono, a victim in the Labo fire 9 years ago. By putting the heat on the company that carried out the funeral service, I found out something quite interesting. That being, Yuri Katono's funeral service was a complete farce. When she was laid in that coffin, she wasn't dead. They gave her sleeping medication, applied funeral makeup, and passed off the real Yuri Katono as their own corpse. They what? And before they cremated her body, they replaced it with a monkey's corpse. The bereaved family believed those ashes to be the remains of Yuri Katono and laid them to rest. And thus, she was dead to the world. Impossible, isn't that too elaborate for an act? Yuri Katono's death was a sudden accidental death, wasn't it? It appears the funeral service company had prepared for the opportunity beforehand. Somebody had commissioned them to do it. They did not disclose any information about the client, but it was probably someone from Rokume City, or perhaps Labo. So then you say they feigned Yuri Katono's death and confined her in Labo. The possibility is extremely high. After hearing Ina's report to the end, Curator took a deep breath. Tsubakiyama, you investigated this far on your own? In my spare time as a teacher, yes. Well, you're not the same type as your father, but you seem to be quite capable in your own right, I'll give you that. As Curator smiled wryly, Ina continued, more importantly, how should we handle this case, Chief Curator? Our duty is, first and foremost, to protect communicators. Any illegal experimentation on them must be exposed. Yes, of course. Then should we conduct an on-site inspection of Labo post-haste? Given the ESP Bureau's authority, that shouldn't be much of a... We can't, Tsubakiyama. Ina's eyes widened at Kuroda's response. Higa and I have already suspected that Labo and Rokume City are up to no good, but even if we request a compulsory inspection, the higher-ups wouldn't approve it. Why? Are we not a national agency? So why are we unable to search a facility administered by a local self-governing body? Normally we could. We do have the authority to inspect every government-designated top-secret city and research institution, but for some reason or other, Rokume City's Labo is the only place that's off-limits to our inspection. The reason for the top brass's refusal seems to be insufficient evidence and to ensure Labo's secrecy. Impossible. Even for just a simple inspection? If they don't have anything to feel guilty about, then there shouldn't be a problem at all. Yeah, so what I'm thinking is that even the top brass here at the ESP Bureau have probably fallen to Labo's side. Perhaps by bribery or by blackmail. When Ina became speechless, Kuroda continued, Labo is an independent administrative institution. Strictly speaking, they're not under the rule of a government agency like us. Naturally, at first they received national guidance and were set up in accordance with national policy, but they gradually grew out of our control. Currently, Labo's management is handled by Rokume City, but the research results are sold over to a corporation known as Beetlejuice New Treatments. In short, Labo is a commercial corporation posing as an administrative institution. Furthermore, since it's protected by the city, Labo can withstand all sorts of strain. It's an extremely nasty secret research facility. Then the facility that my father wanted to establish to protect communicators has been reduced to a sinister corporate entity, performing human experimentation for profit? We only have circumstantial evidence, but yes, that appears to be the case. Ina gritted her teeth at those words. When her father was alive, he and the BC researchers he worked with all supposedly attended to the communicators with good faith. Did the researchers' ethics decay through the 16 years following? Based on the nature of the facility, if Labo so wished, they can conduct inhuman experimentation without anyone being the wiser. Have they gone so far off the deep end to just do that? There's another reason why the higher-ups are reluctant to do a compulsory inspection. Huh? National interest. Regardless of what happens internally in there, Labo undeniably produces results. You know just how much foreign money the development of BC insulators and AD earned? Roughly 800 billion yen. A sum that's that large more than compensates for the abduction of one or two communicators in the eyes of the Japanese government. Even if the confined communicators become enified, it should be fine if they've been shut away from the beginning. Public safety shouldn't waver. And nobody bats an eye. Nobody's sad, and they all live happily ever after. Please don't joke like that. Ina's angry voice interrupted Kuroda's cynical sneering. What happens to abducted communicators? True, communicators at risk for enification should be confined, but we can't have a repeat of the tragedy 16 years ago. But Yuri Katono, had a Ranksy aptitude, you know. There wasn't any need for her to suffer confinement. If I just ignored this incident, then Labo could even start abducting my own students one day for all I know. So please, I don't care what anyone says, I can't let Labo's crimes pass. Once Ina finished shouting all of that in one go, Kuroda gazed at her hard. You've really become a teacher, haven't you, Commissioner Tsubakiyama? Huh? So I take it you place priority on the dignity of the confined communicators as individuals over the nation's agenda then? I do, is that so wrong? What about you, Chief Kuroda? Commissioner Higa? Do you feel nothing? It is our duty to protect communicators, is it not? Kuroda answered Ina's plea. Exactly. And Higa nodded as well, finally breaking the silence. Tsubakiyama, you are correct. Huh? I didn't know your father, but I've read his journal several times. According to his accounts, Communicator A was unmistakably someone in need of protection, regardless of how dangerous she may have been. I was transferred from public security, from an objective position. The national agenda is absolute, and I believe that the safety of the public should receive priority over everything. But, unless it comes at the cost of the safety of the public, the dignity of the individual should be protected with the utmost care as well. Two types of people live in this country: the great majority who does not know the truth, and those of us who do know. Those who do not know the truth should be allowed to live in public peace and blissful ignorance, unaware of both justice and evil. But we're different. Among those who know the truth, we are the only ones who can execute justice. If we forget justice, it means the decay of ethics. Isn't that correct, Tsubakiyama? Yes. Kuroda smiled at Ina's response. Yes, that settles it. We don't need no stinking permission. Let's make that compulsory inspection. With which members? Well, we don't know who's in the pockets of the Rokume City government, so let's just go with the three of us. It's a dangerous mission though, so you don't have to come with us if you don't want to. You know, little missy? No, I'll go with you. Ina answered without hesitation, for she believed that that was what her father wished for. Several days later, the date of the compulsory inspection was set. Early morning, September 16th. A fateful day for Enna's division, as it was the anniversary of her father's death. Their prepared provisions included a forged inspection warrant and a single handgun for Enna's self-defense only. Labo is a den of demons. We don't know what's waiting for us in there. If worse comes to worse, you need to be prepared to use this. And with those words, Enna steeled her heart. Several days passed, and on Sunday, the day before the Labo infiltration/inspection, Enna came to Rokume Academy to bid farewell to the school where she had spent half a year as a teacher. There's no telling what will happen tomorrow. Even if everything goes by safely, it's very likely that she'd no longer be able to come and go to school leisurely. If they were to obtain evidence of human experimentation at Labo, it'd stir the upper ranks and switch things over to a full-blown investigation. So today was likely the last day she could spend as a teacher at Rokume Academy. And with that thought in mind, the school building seemed all too precious. It was such a nice school. It was peaceful and the students were all obedient. And it wasn't just the school. All of Rokume City was, at least ostensibly, beautiful, orderly and peaceful. But the city was filled with lies and deception behind the scenes. Now that I think about it, Chief Curator said something similar. It had been right after Enna had entered the ESP Bureau and returned to Rokume City, as she'd been reeling from the surprise of all the developments along the street and automatic driving systems installed in the vehicles. Curator had told her this. Hey Tsubakiyama, don't let appearances fool you. Rokume City could very well be the most dangerous city in all of Japan right now. Huh? The truth is, despite the city's appearances, there have been atrocious incidents here in the past, including disasters with high casualty counts. But it would cause a huge uproar if such incidents happened in a government-designated top-secret city, when its entire point is to have public order, wouldn't it? It would threaten the very meaning of top-secret cities' existence, so instead, the city government hushed those incidents and treat them as mere accidents. What? True, you'd expect to see some top-secret city conceal some actions here and there, but still. The city's cover-up techniques are particularly thorough too. They have no qualms about making any sort of lie, as long as it's to maintain public order. Well, for example, you are like whitewashed tombs, which look beautiful on the outside, but on the inside are full of the bones of the dead and everything unclean. It's basically like that. What's that? The Gospel according to Matthew. The people of the past did some good stuff, huh? I didn't think you were a Christian. You don't look like the type. There's a lot more to people than meets the eye, and not just people. Same goes for everything. So, Tsubakiyama, if you wish to see through to the truth of this town, then you must doubt everything you see and hear. Doubt is the mother of investigation, sadly enough. After 2.5 years of working as a commissioner, Enna naturally came to learn the meaning of those words. But then again, her father's opinion had been the opposite of Kurota's. The most important thing humans have is the ability to trust. That belief had stayed with Enna's father until the very end. He believed that in the innate goodness of man. He believed in the PRC's researchers. He believed even that the monster-fied Communicator A could one day be healed, and he believed until he died. But father, we might already be living in an age, but we cannot survive on belief alone. Outside of Rokume City, anti-communicator discrimination still persisted. But within Rokume, human rights were being trampled on without a second thought. The city was both a cradle and a cage for communicators. But humans cannot live their entire lives in a cradle, nor were they born to die imprisoned in a cage. Will this age full of malice one day come to an end? No, it will end. She wanted to believe that. Even if it were no more than an idealistic thought, if she were to abandon her ideals, then she would lose her love for the world for sure. As Enna had that thought, a voice abruptly echoed inside her head. Miss Enna, this is an emergency. It's me, Mashido Tolpa. If you're at school, please come to the staff entrance. Miss Tolpa? Enna was shocked. She thought there weren't any students around. An emergency? What could it be? Enna felt dubious, but she still headed for the staff entrance. And at the staff entrance, she found Mashido as well as Natsuhiko and Salu. When they moved to the BC room to speak in detail, Mashido and the others told Enna something unexpected. Q had infiltrated the city, and Natsuhiko, Mashido and Salu had been somewhat dragged into the affair. I see, so that's what happened. Miss Enna, you believe us? Yes, you're my student, so I believe what you say. She had to believe it. Enna had already heard that Q had recently been conducting destructive activity in the city. Higa had also mentioned something a while back. There have been next to zero examples of Q causing terrorism inside the government-designated top-secret cities, but right after they formed, they certainly did continue to target top-secret cities. and in the spring 9 years ago they conducted just one small-scale destructive activity. Ever since then, the city shot up security, establishing city gates and surveillance cameras. But even so, it seemed Q had come to the city once more, driven only by a wholehearted hatred for communicators. They were another figure of malice, different from Labo's sinister shadow, and students of mine had been dragged into their grasp. I don't think you should involve yourselves in this incident any further. No way, why not? Natsuko and the girls wouldn't accept Ina's answer. Perhaps because they knew nothing. They acted in accordance with their ignorant yet pure sense of justice. It was as dazzling a sight as it was a worrying one. Right, if I want you kids to understand where I'm coming from, it looks like a special lesson is in order. And thus Ina began a lecture. Her final lecture as their teacher. And then the next day, the fateful hour had finally come. In the early hours of September 16th, Ina headed to Labo with Curator and Hika. They were stopped at the entrance by Labo's security guard. By using the false warrants, they half-forced their way inside. They were given white lab coats to change into and were taken all the way to Area 6's inner ring. And once they'd arrived there, the researchers called them to a halt once more. According to them, not even ESP Bureau commissioners could be allowed further in for the sake of preserving secrecy. Now that it had come to this, Ina was about to threaten them with her gun and force them to open a path to Area N, but before she could, she suddenly heard a thunderous roar. What's that sound? As if to answer their question, more and more sounds echoed forth. The automatic disaster prevention system began broadcasting warnings like mad. Intense tremors detected in B1 Area 1. Intense tremors detected in B2 Area 3. A fire has broken out in B1 Area 2. Intense tremors detected in B2 Area 2. Ina was caught completely off guard. She had not expected such a thing to happen today of all days. Was it a coincidence? An inevitability? Either way, the ESP Bureau members got dragged into the terrorist attack. The researchers who had called them to a halt began to scatter in all directions like headless chickens. What in the world is going on here? I don't know, but it might be a Q terrorist attack. Q? You mean those bastards know this place is a BC research facility? It's only a possibility. Ina, Curator and Higa had heard rumours that Q had infiltrated the city. But while Q may have infiltrated the city, Labo couldn't have just conspicuously strengthened security. That would be the same as installing a sign saying, "This is a BC facility." And perhaps Labo had maintained security at normal levels for that very reason, but did they take advantage of that window of opportunity? Now let's just look for an exit for now. In case we do encounter any terrorists, well, it might be completely out of our scope of work, but I guess let's try and see if we can apprehend them. Understood. The commissioners broke off into a run to search for an exit. But they ran across a huge fire in the factory. Ina got separated from Curator and Higa. "Chief, Commissioner Higa, where are you?" Voices called out in response to Ina from across the fire. "Tsubakiyama, we can't regroup like this. Let's split up and search for exits separately. Wait for us on the surface." "Got it." And a little while after they parted, an ominous siren blared out. "A KSN has just been detected. In accordance with this emergency, security has shifted to blockade mode, locking down all gates and bulkheads." And thus Ina became trapped underground. Before she could regroup with Curator and Higa, she was chased by fires in the connecting passageway. Damn it! Like hell I'm gonna die here. Ina tossed off the lab coat, given to her by Labo, and made a mad dash away from the fire and smoke. And then, she pulled out the hose of a hydrant and began fighting the fires herself. After extinguishing the fires, she began planning how to escape from the connecting passageway, when eventually, rescue workers appeared. "What's your name?" "Ina Tsubakiyama, and you guys?" "I'm Lieutenant Tachibana, and this is Ensign Mortabe. And this girl is Yuri, a civilian we found trapped down here." "A civilian? So there's someone besides me who was caught up in this incident?" "Yes." The girl named Yuri looked at Ina with fearful eyes. "Yuri? The same name as Yuri Katona?" "Something's bothering me. Looks like the best course of action is to put on a veil of an ordinary person for a while and work with them for now." Besides, she had to search for an exit anyway. And she was also worried about Curator and Higa's safety as well. Ina decided to work with this group. She took the AD just as Kazami had instructed. Through her work experience, Ina had already gained knowledge about the dangers of WX particles and the effects of AD, among other things. And naturally, she also knew how Labo had maintained the facade that it was all related to nuclear power. But it's not like I can tell everybody about that. If an ordinary person were to know about those things, they'd immediately be targeted by Labo for the purposes of concealing information. In any case, the dangers were still real, and they still had to keep administering AD either way. With that thought in mind, she decided to play along and keep going for a while, and eventually she saw Curator and Higa again. That's who those people were? Oh no, I thought they were researchers. Ina couldn't help but scream, but when she saw them again, Curator and Higa's appearances had completely changed. Perhaps they were masquerading as labo researchers, considering they were still wearing their provided lab coats. But the lab coats were no longer white, having been stained deep red by the blood oozing from their countless gunshot wounds. They were shot? Given that they were lying with their heads turned towards the door, it was possible that they'd been trying to escape from the room. The various sized holes in their bodies, especially the big ones in their stomachs, exposed their rust-coloured viscera. But Nina couldn't peel her eyes from the dead bodies. What's any of this supposed to mean? Why were Chief Curator and Commissioner Higa shot to death, but the rescue worker alone had his neck snapped? I can only think of two answers. All three of these people were together when the terrorists came in, shot Chief Curator and Higa, and massacred the rescue worker. Or perhaps the rescue worker was the terrorist himself. Chief Curator and Higa tried to apprehend the terrorist, and fought him barehanded, and the scuffle ended in a draw with all of them dead. She had a feeling the answer was more likely the latter. If she remembered correctly, her father's journal stated that Curator had transferred from the National Police Agency and had been an expert in martial arts since childhood, and Higa used to be with public security. It wouldn't have been surprising if he had matching strength too. I don't know the truth of this situation, but there's one thing I know for sure. Chief Curator and Commissioner Higa were killed by the terrorists. Ina gritted her teeth. Please rest in peace. I swear I will avenge you. I swear I won't let there be any more victims than this. She decided to keep up the facade of an ordinary person as she searched for the culprit. Or at least she tried to, but despite her determination, a new victim came up. Watase looked at the dead body and muttered dumbfoundedly. Who was this girl? Ina didn't know either, but she had a hunch. This girl's clothes look almost like a hospital gown. Could it be that this girl was a test subject confined in Labo? In that case, it was highly possible that Q had killed her. Then was Miss Yuri a test subject too? Could the cause of Captain Kasasagi's amnesia be related to the test subjects? If his amnesia is due to sense sympathy, then who will raise his memories, and why? Was it this girl before she died, or could it have been Miss Yuri? Several doubts seized Anna's mind. She considered revealing her true identity and using her gun as a threat to seek out the criminal, but that was too risky. If any of the members of their group were either a terrorist or an ability level 6 communicator, then the whole plan had a chance of backfiring on her. Now that I think about it, everyone here right now is suspicious. If that rescue worker was a terrorist, then Captain Kasasagi, Mrs. Tachibana, and Miss Mortabe might be with the terrorists as well. And then there's Mr. Ikita, a possible sleeper agent, as well as Miss Yuri, an unidentified girl. There's nobody here I can rely on as an ally. She was only armed with a single gun. She couldn't risk an offensive when she didn't even know her enemy's numbers. But still, I will apprehend the culprit at all costs. It's part of my job as a commissioner. Ina felt the weight of her gun as she made a decision. Protect me, father. And thus Ina began her lonely battle, knowing that anybody could be an enemy. And with that, we need to wrap this episode up here. Looks like she had no malice in her, as we already suspected. So we don't need to fix her brain. So I guess we're moving on to the next person's brain to fix. Till then, I hope you guys enjoyed it. Thanks for watching. Thanks for hanging out with me, and I'll see you in the next one.